Howdy everybody. Today's video is a bit of a trip down memory lane. This is actually a van I built out almost 3 years ago. It's on a RAM Promaster City platform. This is one of those minivans, you can buy as a cargo van, so the back of it is just totally gutted. This footage was actually shot by my girlfriend, and she knew it'd probably be a good idea for me to make a video about it, but it took me this long to get around to it, so big thanks to her. Before we get into the actual conversion, I'd just like to point out a few things to keep in mind. First, this is a 2020 model RAM Promaster City. Second, per the customer's requests, this is a simple conversion. So just keep that in mind. A lot of the storage in it is designed more around either having bins that you put in there or like having backpacks that you can throw underneath the bed. Third, this is a kind of a complement on like the other end of the spectrum of a build from the Ford Transit Connect video that I put out a while ago. That one kind of had all the bells and whistles, had some extra amenities like a composting toilet, and like a plumbed water system, while this one is just a lot more simple. It still has a heater, has a way to cook, has a solar system, but it is just a much simpler build, and that is per the customer's request, to basically save money. So hopefully you enjoy this conversion, or at least get some cool ideas to kind of see what you can do, with this size of footprint, this size of van, as you maybe plan to make your own van. So the van layout is fairly simple. On the driver's side, there's a bed, and on the passenger side, there's a small kitchenette. Starting at the bed, it is primarily designed to sleep one person, but it is pretty easy to convert it to two people. As part of this conversion, I didn't supply the mattress, but you would need some kind of mattress that can fold in half for when you're sleeping one person, and then it can unfold for two people. So there's some obvious challenges in that setup. You gotta, where do you put your bedding when you're not using it? You're probably gonna be stuffing it in a bin underneath. For one person, it's pretty easy to just kind of push your sheets over and sit on it, but for two people, it would be a little more cumbersome. So this bed is primarily designed for a single person. Part of the bed that's closer to the driver's seat, underneath part of it, I have one of these cooler style Dometic fridges that can slide underneath. This is basically a refrigerator, but you do have to slide it out to be able to access it. And then even further forward than that, I've got this kind of cabinet built in. Half of it houses a small propane tank that's used to power the heater and the stove, and the other half contains the batteries, some of the electrical components, and as well from the sliding door you can access kind of the electrical control panel. I do want to mention that this van has a false floor area that you can put some things in it, but it's way smaller than the Ford Transit Connect video. If you watch that one, you'll see I was able to house most of kind of the utility infrastructure underneath there. But in this van, I was only able to fit the heater and the inverter. So those two things are located underneath the floor, but the rest of the electrical components and the propane tank is mounted in this cabinet. Moving across the van to the other side, we've just got this fairly simple kitchenette. It has a 2-burner stove with the glass lid, but there is no plumbed water system. There's no sink. The customer chose to just use water jugs. You can put one water jug right next to your kitchen that you can use the little spigot on to fill water bottles or pots and pans. And then if you need more water, you can obviously put that in jugs underneath the bed. When you're sitting and working in the kitchen, the countertop in these small vans is usually just pretty small. There's just not a whole lot of room to work with. So there is a pull-out kind of cutting board, kind of counter space work area, so you can kind of get a little more room to work. Below that, I've got a pretty big drawer for storage, and below that, there's a couple sliding doors that has a little bit of storage behind it. This area is pretty small though, because you do have the wheel wells to contend with. So it's just, maybe 6 inches deep or so you could put things like a loaf of bread or some cans in there, but you can't just store a whole lot. The only way I could figure out a latch to kind of have this cutting board and this drawer closed together in a nice way was to use one of these old wrenches. I just needed a piece of metal that would just pivot correctly and then be able to tighten down. And using one of these old wrenches just seemed like kind of a funny little touch to add. Besides that, there's some blackout curtains that wrap around kind of the front cab area. You can wrap these curtains around a backpack or anything else you want to put in the front seats, which just kind of helps keep them out of sight, a bit safer. And then there's a small kind of fold down table on one of the back doors. I think this is kind of a nice touch because in a small van like this, inevitably you will be hanging outside of it quite often, as much as the weather permits, because it's just way nicer to be able to stand up and not just be sitting the whole time. Anyways, this is just a really quick little overview of this van. It's just a simple conversion that I think came out pretty useful. And yeah, thanks for watching.